guys ready to see an R-rated comedy in a movie theater? Unbelievable. Well, we're here because it's the 20th anniversary of the 40-Year-Old Virgin, and I guess they're going to put it in the movie theaters in August for a week in about 800 theaters, and we're going to celebrate the shit out of ourselves tonight. But this was a big movie for all of us because, except Keener, who was already huge, but it was a big break, my first directing, Steve's first lead, and it was just a special moment in time. So we're going to just talk about the movie a little bit, and then we're going to show you the movie. How's that sound? I'll turn, and I'm the moderator, because the moderators are always terrible at these things, aren't they? They ruin it every time, don't you think, Steve?
Well, you will.
Yeah. I'm gonna kick ass right now. Now, Steve.
Yes.
We met, Steve came in to read for Anchorman, and it was just one of the most epic auditions. I don't know if you've seen it online. It's Steve as Brick, and he's clearly eating garbage, but he thinks it's a buffet line. And then we did Anchorman, and Steve was just killing so hard every day that I said, do you have any ideas where you would be the lead of the movie? And then you told me this idea. Do you remember how you explained it to me, what the pitch was?
The pitch was, it was based on this, a poker scene, and it was essentially a bunch of guys playing poker, which the scene ended up in the film. And it was a guy who just had he was trying to BS with the rest of his poker buddies because there was a lot of sex talk, but he wasn't up to the task, and he could not even pretend that he was good at talking about sex. And they call him out on it, and that was the idea, that was the impetus. I actually pitched you another idea for about an hour before this one. This was right at the end of our meeting, and I had this other idea, and you were kind of going, oh yeah, it's good, I like it, it's nice, maybe it's something to consider down the road at some point. And I was walking out the door, and I said, oh, and there's this other thing. Guy who's 40 years old and he's a virgin. You said, I can sell that. And then you did, almost instantly.
Well, I always remember you said, he doesn't know how to talk about sex. He's clearly making it all up. And he said, you know how when you touch a woman's breast, it feels like a bag of sand? And how when you put your hand down a woman's pants, there's all the baby powder? And I just thought, I think I understand this person. I understand exactly what this is, and then we sold it after a while, and they told us we're going to make this movie. The whole time we were writing, they said, when you finish this movie, you're going to make the movie, and they stuck to that. And I always remember that Steve was nervous when it started, and you would always be really nice to the casting director, because Steve said, I just want to make sure that if this movie bombs, this woman will still give me other jobs. Do you remember that?
No.
Now Jane came in. I remember your audition, Jane, because you came in and just blew our minds open. It was just an improv session unlike anything I've ever seen before. And the second you left, we transcribed it and just put it in the script. Because it was just so crazy. Do you remember that audition?
I do. And I knew Steve I do.
Jane, she did.
And I remember, Steve and I know each other from Chicago. And I think the story was that your wife, Nancy, said you have so many men in this movie, you should call Jane in for the store manager. Yeah. Which I thought was lovely. That was Nancy Walls, Steve's wife. Yeah, I do remember it, and yeah, it was fun. I don't remember it particularly, but I guess it was in the film, right?
You sang that song to me. You improvised it.
Yes.
Into my face,
yes.
Very closely.
Yes.
And
yeah.
and we looked at each other, and we wrote down every word. And it was just perfect.
Oh, well, yeah, it was a real joy for me. I remember it was my birthday, and when I heard that I got the job, it was like the best birthday present ever. I sang the Guatemalan love song, which is a monologue from ALM Spanish level 1 from high school, and I put.
Do you still remember it?
I do.
Would you?
I would. Cuando arreglan mi cuarto, no encuentro nada. ¿Dónde bajan tanta prisa al partido de fútbol?
Now, Gerry, the great Gerry Bednob, one of my favorite comedians since I was a young man. We used to do stand-up comedy at the LA Cabaret in Encino, the hot comedy town of Encino. I was very happy to get Gerry in the film. And Gerry, you're filthy in the movie. You're very dirty.
You wrote it.
I blame Seth Rogen for all of that. I didn't know any of those terms before or since. And what is the result of that? Do people still talk to you about what you said there, Gerry?
Oh yeah, well some people ask me what I improvise. And that phrase that I said, pussy juice cocktail.
That was an improv.
No, it was, you were very helpful. It was just a pussy cocktail. But the visual of a pussy in a glass, you kind of shake it. So you told me to add pussy juice.
This is what a director does. This is what a director does. People like me, Paul Thomas Anderson, we know the adjustments you make on sets. It just reminds me that when we were making the movie and we were writing the movie, Seth always just wanted everything dirtier. And he was always just like, look how uncomfortable it makes Steve, it's hilarious.
That's absolutely true.
Steve would pull me aside and go like, I don't know if it should be this dirty. And then you would go on another run. And then you'd go on another run, and we had the great Romany Malco and Paul Rudd working at the store with you.
And that was improvised, most of it, Romany. And I don't know if you remember that Romany lived in Trinidad too, and I'm from Trinidad.
I made a point of hiring 2 people from Trinidad. It's DEI, it's just the way you do it.
There was a big need for Trinidadians at the time. And Romany actually did the whole thing in Trinidad accent. And you said, what the fuck are they doing? I'm talking, and you thief my damn fucking thing. You thief my customer. I said, fuck you, I didn't fucking thief your customer. And you said, hey, cut, what the fuck are you talking about here? That's not in the script. And that was the plan with me and Romany. We had a good time.
I think if I took credit for writing the things you and Romany said, I would be kicked out of this business. I can never say I wrote any of those scenes, or I get the big
I
trouble.
remember the audition with Steve. You had me come in, and Judd does these things, of course. He said, forget the script, just go for it. And I said some things that unprintable. And you want to hear it?
Please, Gerry, no.
Not fucking-
Everyone here has a camera. I've never seen so many cameras. I've never been so afraid to speak out loud. Now, Catherine and Kat, you were a family, right? Together. Kat, that was early in your career. How old were you when we did the movie?
Yes, well, apparently, if this was 40 years ago, I was 18. I know.
It's like one of your first movies?
I think. I don't remember. Yeah, pretty sure. Definitely it was like the first big thing for sure that I'd ever auditioned for, done anything. It was very It was a big deal.
And you had Catherine as your mom. That's
my
kind
God.
of hardcore. I mean, I think for Steve too, we were like, we're gonna act with Catherine Keener. That's kind of badass. She is not fucking around. How is it for you, Kat, to act with Catherine?
Me? Oh
Yeah.
my God. I was really nervous about the whole experience, but also because, this is like a professional actor. This is like a real deal, like incredible actress who I was very excited about it, and I was really like, okay, don't fuck it up. Seem like you know what you're doing, it's gonna be fine. And you were just, obviously, everyone here is like incredible and wonderful, but you were so welcoming and lovely to me, and you made me feel so much more comfortable. I was really nervous when you were just.
So was I. No, just with everyone, it was. I was actually very nervous. But with you just were such a wild hare that it was.
Yeah, she was crazy, that girl.
Yeah, it was so.
Fun.
You were amazing, and everyone was.
And Steve was scared of Catherine. You
I
guys
was
had to make
terrified
love.
of you.
You
I
guys
really
had to
was.
get down.
Well, it was like you were saying, to get someone of this caliber to do a movie called The 40-Year-Old Virgin. And it sort of rings differently now because it's a thing and it's 20 years later. But at the time, I actually remember going back to a high school reunion before it came out, and people asked what I was up to. And I said, I just did a movie called The 40-Year-Old Virgin. And the glazed look on all of these friends from high school and the pity in their faces, like, oh, God, I'm doing so well, and that's what he's doing. But the fact that you agreed to be in this movie, I don't think either of us could believe it.
No, because I said, who do you think should play this part? And you just went, Catherine Keener. And he said, I love Catherine Keener. And then we checked in, and Catherine, you knew Steve.
I read the script. I was already a big fan of both Judd's and Steve's from, those little things that they, I'm kidding, but the things they had done.
All the canceled TV shows.
No, I loved all like Freaks and Geeks and Anchorman, but also, were you on Daily Show? Was that right?
Yeah, I was in the game.
Yeah.
Those were 5 years.
No, I couldn't remember which one it was. But yeah, so I was already like, oh my God. And then I read the script, and it was, I thought, really funny. And, called 40-Year-Old Virgin. I play a grandmother in it. Yeah, let me do it. It was good. So, but I actually, what I thought was, knowing these two men, kind of their work anyway, that they must be up to something that I don't really know yet. I really thought that if it came from you, and it was something that you were just doing, that you generated and wrote, that clearly there was more to it than the title, I guess.
I wasn't surprised that the movie did so well. I remember when we tested it, like the place would explode, and we were like, oh, this is good. People might go to this. And then the first week it did pretty well, and then like the third week it went up. And then it just didn't go away for so long. Did you feel that, Jane, on the street?
Absolutely. People just loved it. Yeah, I remember walking by, was it the Sunset Fiver played? That doesn't seem right. But anyway, there was like a line to get in. And I walked by very slowly. They were second timers and recognized me.
Gerry, did it change your life?
Yeah, well, I'm wearing this now. No.
You're wearing that sweatshirt? That's what it led to?
I was doing a movie called, a series, Playing House. And one of the extras came up to me and said, you should be getting royalties. I said, why? He said, do you know that Pussy Juice Cocktail is a legit drink now. And you see it, if you Google it. And it's made of
Get arrested for Googling it.
coconut rum and ginger beer and it's all pussy. I'm not getting any fucking materials. Man.
No money, not a nickel for you changing all of mixology.
Google.
Is this what you thought it would be, Steve?
Oh my God, don't say those words anymore.
It's kind of why the movie worked, because Steve really, that was his reaction to all of you. Right? To Jane singing, this is Steve.
I remember they were trying to come up with more and more horrible things that you would do sexually, like what was it? The strawberry shortcake. It was terrible, terrible things, sexual things that had included blood and all sorts of stuff. Do you remember this, or am I the only one?
The blood, yeah.
I will say, to have a job where you know every day when you go into work you are going to laugh until you cry.
Yes.
Every single day is like such a gift. And to be surrounded by people who are inspiring, and just everyone was so good and funny, and what a great ensemble, in my humble opinion. Just pure fun all the way through.
Very gung-ho, yes.
And you know what? When you said, see, we have bloopers. I've done movies where people say, let's work on a blooper. That's not a blooper, it's scripted. And when we work, and I was saying these dirty things to Steve, and I saw Judd and Seth Rogen laughing in the corner. And now that was a real blooper because Steve apparently was really laughing. And I even say, you're fucking up my lines when you laugh. And then, when I said alligator fuckhouse, then you started laughing and then say, okay, cut. And that's a blooper because it actually happened. It wasn't scripted like that.
You should have said alligator fuckhouse cocktail. You would have had another drink.
No, you can't mix up that with pussy juice cocktail.
You gotta know when you've nailed it and you just move on.
It doesn't go there.
Because you nailed it.
It doesn't go there.
And I remember, Catherine, when we were writing the movie, Steve and I gave the script to Gerry Shandling, and Gerry Shandling came to our table read. Do you remember? And afterwards, we were trying to figure out, things that we could make better. And Adam McKay came to the table. Adam McKay had the idea of breaking the lights, that they would have fights with the neons, the fluorescent tubes. He said he used to do that work. And then we were all talking about, does the 40-year-old virgin masturbate? And this was a big thing, because would it be weird to ignore that? What do we do? And what do we do with that? And then Gerry goes, maybe we just show him prepare to masturbate. He takes out his lotions and brushes his hair, puts on his favorite bathrobe.
Lights a candle.
And I also remember that you said that when we would split scenes after we had the outline, and you were writing the drunk driving sequence with Nikki, and that Nancy played a big part in coming up with the shellfish sandwich. that she was helping out with that sequence, and she was hilarious in the movie, in the sex. What do we call the place you went to? It wasn't Planned Parenthood. It was
a sexual education museum. But I remember that made me laugh so, I was trying really hard not to ruin takes because I didn't have much to say in that scene. It was Nancy and the father and son mostly. And I had to dig my fingernails so hard into the palm of my hand to stop myself from laughing every single time, because they would do it differently every time. And I had never experienced the world of improv comedy like this. And Nancy is just so, she's incredible, and she would do something so unhinged every time. That was so I was like, how can this be? And I was just bleeding profusely because I was trying not to ruin the takes. It was the funniest day of work I've ever had in my life. Yeah, really.
Well, I remember the scene where you walked in while they were trying to open up the condoms, and you couldn't get the condom on. That is a ballet dance of not getting a condom on that you did, and then you being disgusted and screaming.
I
What is
screamed a lot.
happening?
Yeah, I screamed a lot. And my favorite thing was when you would yell off set. You'd be like, "Say this next time, go." I'd be like, "What?" That was really amazing. So Judd will get a good idea for a line, and he will yell it at you really quick before you roll, and you'll be like, "What?" And then you just spit it out, and it is funnier. You're good at your job. Woo, it's true.
You know, you had such an intense teenager energy to you as
Yeah.
well that I wouldn't. I didn't think you thought any of it was funny.
No.
You know, you had that face that it was an intense face of disdain
Yeah.
for anyone
Hatred.
with 5-6 years older than you.
Yes.
And I thought, is she just the character? Is she actually acting? Because it was so seamless. But then, of course, you're so nuanced in it. And
Oh.
remember, we had a little scene in the car
Yes.
where we're trying to. I even remember we were driving over in the valley. I remember very specifically, and it was just a very gentle little moment between us where you warmed to him just a tiny bit, and I thought there's so much there, and I think those little moments in this film, in my mind, is what kind of separates it. There's an essence of humanity. It doesn't hit you over the head. It doesn't pander to that. But just moments like that, and so true. The way you played it was so small and so nice and beautiful, and so well acted and earned. That I don't know. I think those little moments is what made it so great, all the way through from everybody.
I love that car scene. That was I remember that. I also remember being stressed out because I didn't know how to drive. I was like, they're gonna know. And I think you helped me a little bit. I was like, does this look like driving?
I
You're
can't
like,
believe I would help you. It doesn't sound like me.
But I was not. Does it look like I know how to drive? But I do remember taking this very seriously. At the time, I was 18, so I was doing all that. I mean, maybe not that, but I was going through the intense emotions, and I was taking this, the screaming, crying stuff was real. I had my, iPod 1, the first iPod ever made. I was listening to, Hurt by Johnny Cash, and I was, working myself up. I don't know if he recorded it by it was a sad song, let's just put it that way. I was working myself up, really getting there, and I was like, God damn, acting so hard. But now I don't take it that seriously. It's much easier now. Yeah.
And also the love story. I mean, Catherine, I remember we did a table read for it, and we really were like, oh, how do we get this romance exactly right? And then you guys had such chemistry that it just played right off the bat so well. And I remember, at that same table read, Garry Shandling said, they love each other, so you have to show their sex because their sex is better than Romany's sex and Paul's sex because they're in love. So make sure you have to show the sex. And we were like, how do you show the sex? We can't show the sex. And we talked about it, and Gerry would call me, and he'd leave messages like, did you figure out how to show the sex? You have to show it, because that's what it's about. It's about love, but you gotta see it. And I brought it up to Steve one day in the office when we were writing, and I was like, I don't know how to do this. And Steve just said, well, maybe I just break out into song. And I was like, you mean let the sunshine in? And it happened in 2 seconds. And I remember the first time we showed it, the place just blew up when they saw it. They just didn't see it coming. And then later someone's like, yeah, that's in every Bollywood movie. I'm like, I never saw a Bollywood movie. I don't live in India.
What about the sex scene that we had?
That was the first sex scene I ever directed.
That was an hour long.
That was the last sex scene I ever did.
Was it the first?
Yes, it was the first, for sure.
No, I mean, that went on for, I remember, the thing about this, because we shot on film, I would always, we finally, like, we got through this, you know, this reel, and then we'd hear Judd say, reload, instead of cut. There was never a cut, and it just kept going and going and going.
Thank you.
You know what? Those are the days before the intimacy coordinator, when you were just in Judd's hands. You know what else I'd like to see you guys do right now? Really want you to go for it. Gerry said this sex has got to be hot, and I haven't seen it yet. That was a very uncomfortable day for me, I'm not gonna lie. I was uncomfortable. I was like hiding at the monitor, like, did we get it? Did we get it? But I do think it's what makes the movie work, is like, it is like, you guys look post-coital.
Well, we actually were laughing. We were laughing a lot.
Oh, yeah.
First we were like, and then it just got so ridiculous.
Well, we became such a good friend, like instantly too.
Yes.
It was just, the whole thing was just so funny and weird and silly. No, you're the best. So.
No, it's,
And Catherine, remember when Jonah Hill was in the movie?
I
Jonah
do.
had like 2 lines.
no, Jonah was freaking trying me. Like, he came in, and of course he's so good at improv, and I mean, he really is. But of course, I was not. That's the thing about this movie, that it really introduced me to, like, the joy of doing improvisation. You know, because I always, like, the writers and directors I had worked with, their scripts were so unbelievable that I wouldn't have changed a word.
What are you trying to say? That got really nasty all of a sudden. Are you saying that Capote was tighter than me and Steve's script?
No, you know what I mean. Like, no,
I always think that you guys can top things, but you know, Jonah, what happened was it was raining that day, and Jonah, you know, really had done almost very, very little in his career up to that point. And because it was raining, we couldn't shoot this other scene, so we had like 4 extra hours. And so we said, let's force Jonah to improvise for 4 hours with Catherine Keener, just to fuck with Jonah, and then we just let you, and just to let you guys go to see what would happen. And then, like, we were laughing just as like a prank. And then on the last test, we were like, let's put some more of Jonah in, just to see how much people like this guy. And then it just murdered,
Done.
and we kind of expanded
Yeah.
the moment, because there's no reason for that exchange except to
No.
introduce people to Jonah.
No, except he was really being like, he was pushing me. It was all made up, but he decided just to come at me, which really was like, what are you fucking doing?
He just wanted those shoes.
Yeah, he wanted the shoes. And then at the end, remember, he called me the B word, which I don't even say because I think it's vile. But he called me that word.
Gerry doesn't mind saying all sorts of
No,
shit.
but that's your business.
I wish he would just say that.
No, but for me, it's very hard to say that word. But anyway, so he called me that. And I'm like, what did you fucking say? And it was, remember Jonah kind of froze? He was like, oh, I went too far, which was true. No, it was great.
And Jane, you, it's so funny because I did a show at Largo last year with Michael McDonald. And we were always like excited, you know, for this. I love this joke that like a stereo store just plays the same stuff all day long, because I used to work at El Torito and they had the same like hour-long, you know, music there, and then you would know all the words to it, and then you would go crazy because they never changed that 1 hour. And so we thought it was funny to only have Michael McDonald, and then we thought, would he ever allow us to make this joke? And then he thought it was funny and let us. But how was it the opposite of Catherine's experience with Paul? Because you had a lot of great scenes with Paul being upset, and
He hated that music, and he said, if you don't turn that shit down, I'm gonna Yamo burn this plane. Yamo be. Yes, same stuff over and over again. I'm sure that probably my character thought he was just like the most romantic music you could play.
I remember there was a scene with Steve where like you were hitting on him, and you were basically trying to turn him into a fuck buddy.
You told me that.
Yeah.
You said, come here. You said, ask him if he's familiar with the term fuck buddy. That's you.
And then you went into this riff about how it would go. Like you'd go in my office, and,
Oh, right,
and
right,
what was
right.
the music you would play for him?
Oh, God, I
Like,
don't remember.
I'll put on some Seals and Crofts,
Oh, Seals.
and we don't have to tell
Summer
anybody.
breeze.
It'll just be our secret.
I will be, you told me to. Tell him you'll be very discreet. You gave me my best stuff, Judd.
And Steve, the sequence that people talk about a lot is the chest waxing. Do you remember how that was conceived?
Well, it was sort of, we talked about a Pretty Woman makeover sequence, and he's going to really, you know, put his best foot forward and try to glow up a little bit. And so we decided that that he'd wax his chest. But I raised my hand and said, we have to really do it. Because to me, I don't think my character is what's funny about the scene. I think it's the other three guys in the scene. That to me is where all of the comedy lies. And their reaction, their real reaction to that happening, I think was infinitely funny than any sort of acted reaction to it being faked. So
Romney was disgusted.
as you watch tonight, Romney leaves the scene. He walks off the stage because he couldn't take it. It was grossing him out. And the close-ups, you can see the blood pooling to the surface. The woman who was the waxing technician, I don't really think that was a valid
lied.
part
She
of her
lied.
resume. Yeah.
She was an actress. They're like, do you know how to wax? She's like, yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. At one point, she put wax on my nipple, and you're supposed
to.
You're supposed to put Vaseline prior to the wax, so the nipple doesn't come off with the hair. And I remember we paused for a second. Someone said, no, and somebody caught it before it actually happened. But to me, what's funny about that scene is them laughing and freaking out.
And then, you know, we had Seth was there, and Evan might have been there that day, making lists of things you would curse when they ripped. Because when I was a kid, I used to go to Action Park in New Jersey, and they would go on. There were these little like carts, and you would go down these cement little slides, but everyone would fall off and then burn their skin off when they fell off their little cart. And there was a little like nurse's stand, and she would spray some disinfectant, like this pink disinfectant, and every time they sprayed it, no matter who it was, they would go, "Fuck you!" And I always remembered that. Like, it was like a normal guy would be like, "Bitch!" And they just couldn't help it. And so Seth made this list of curses. And then I said, can you make a list of things that sound like a curse, but aren't a curse? And then when we still have the piece of paper on the list, it just said Kelly Clarkson.
And you guys would just, I mean, it was a oneer, obviously, this thing. So you would just yell things at me, and I would just scream them over and over. And I think it's the only time that my character actually talks dirty at all. And it's to the technician when she does that. It is that, "Fuck you, I hate you."
We had 4 cameras on you, and there was only one shot. And then in the middle of it, Rudd noticed that it was making a face. And so we're like, oh, let's keep making it a face. And then Rudd said, you look like a man-o'-lantern.
And when that actually, and I had to keep it shaved for the rest of the shoot to match. But when it started to grow back in, that was the most disgusting. Nancy was not happy with that.
Thousands of ingrown hairs.
It was so disgusting.
We're gonna take We're gonna take a couple of questions from the audience. I think there's mics on each side.
I have a
If
question
anyone-
for you, Judd.
Oh, yes.
I just have one quick question.
Yeah.
Did you ever get any blowback from the studio about shooting this while we were shooting?
Well, we were shut down after 2 days. The studio said they thought Steve looked like a serial killer. And they thought Paul Rudd was overweight, which I had asked them to be overweight, because I like a chunky Rudd. And they shut us down for a day to discuss issues such as that. But it was the first time in my life that I didn't get upset. I'm like, if I really mellow, maybe they'll let me start back up again. And then they did. Okay, right over there.
Hi, thank you all for coming here. This is my mom's favorite movie, and and mine too, I love it. But her favorite scene is when Seth Rogen teaches Steve to hit on Elizabeth Banks. I was wondering if you have any cool memories from that scene. And
That was
also-
actually my father's advice, which was just repeat. If you want, this was early on advice in terms of like talking to girls, because I was super shy, and he said just ask questions and just get her talking about herself, and she'll walk away from the conversation thinking, what an interesting guy that was. And that sort of turned into that scene where I was, hitting on Elizabeth Banks.
Also, the scene with Kevin Hart is awesome. I love that too.
That's fantastic.
Kevin Hart wanted to play the Romany Malco part, and we had done a bunch of stuff with him, and I was a big believer in Kevin, and Kevin, always says like he didn't get it, and he thought he wasn't a good actor, and it made him go to acting school and study because he didn't get that part, and I told him no, the reason why you didn't get that part is I didn't believe that you could get laid. And that character has to be like a Lothario, and I just didn't believe it. You didn't even need those acting lessons. But then he came in and did the other part, and okay, right there.
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you all for being here. All of you are fantastic, so thank you. My question is for anyone that wants to answer, hopefully everybody, but what inspires you to do what you do?
Jane, why don't you answer that for the group?
I like to laugh, and I like to be in a group of people laughing. So this was just a peak experience for me.
So I was 12 years old when this movie came out, and I did not know what a virgin was. And it's amazing to say this in front of everybody, but I'm actually 32 and I'm still a virgin. So all I want to say, I don't have a question at all. Thank you so much.
I think that's going to end tonight. With those applause.
Okay, so I have a question for you, Judd and Steve. Is there something that you wrote that you were like, this is going to be hilarious, and then you got there and you were like, oh God, is this not going to work? Or did it end up working, or did it turn into something else?
There was a whole sequence that I think is in the extended cut that stars Stormy Daniels. And it's when he is in bed and he's going to pleasure himself, and then suddenly she's just there in front of you. Is she from the box of porn?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. You really don't want to talk about this, do you?
I don't
Next
remember.
question over here. No, so Stormy, we met because we needed someone naked, and we wanted someone that was very comfortable being naked, because I was afraid of like pushing anyone to be naked. I didn't want to get an actress and then go, will you do it with your top off? And so our producer Sean has said we can get, somebody that is comfortable, like a porn star, Playboy Playmate. So we met Stormy Daniels, and then we put her in Knocked Up, and then and when we were on the set of Knocked Up, she told us that she fucked Donald Trump. That's true. At Video Village, she told us in 2006. So we've always known it was true. Isn't that weird? We're part of history. Okay.
Hi.
I just would also like to announce we're going to go a little longer on the Q&A. Do you guys mind if we go a little bit longer? because there's like a time frame for the night, but I'm sure you show like The Godfather here and it's 3 hours. So we'll talk for a little more because people lined up. Okay.
Well,
Everything is too long with me.
That's perfect, then I got a perfect question for you guys. So, I'm 17, I'm an aspiring film director, and I've been going to these things for a long time, and I'm just really thankful for all you guys being here. But my main question is, like, what are all of your guys' like beginnings? Like, your beginnings of your career and how all that worked into film to get this amazing movie?
We're only gonna have one person answer that because we don't have that much time, and his name is Gerry Bednob. How did you start, Gerry, in this business? As a stand-up comedian?
Actually, as a comedian in Toronto, Canada. And there's a yuck, and there was a lot of racism against Pakistanis at the time, they call it Pakis. So I had made sure, I was not a Pakistani, but visually, they figure I tried to do Pakistani jokes.
You said you were from Pakistan and did Pakistani jokes.
No, I'm not from Pakistan.
No, but your character on stage
No, Bangladesh.
was from Bangladesh. So you're from Trinidad, but you used to say that you were from Bangladesh because of the concert from Bangladesh, right? Because people were talking about Bangladesh a lot.
Yeah, but when I do jokes about Trinidad, nobody knew where the fuck Trinidad was.
Yeah.
So he's making up this fucking country.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I put on a fucking turban and I became Bangladesh.
That was totally cool to do back then. Back then, you could switch nationalities, do all the Bangladesh jokes you wanted
They
to.
actually really hated in Toronto. They hated man and they call him Pakis. And a guy, I remember, invited me to a party. So I went with 6 Paki friends. And he said, Gerry, what the fuck are you doing? I said, you said bring Paki. I said, no, you said bring a 6-pack, not a fucking 6-pack.
And the act was born, And I remember seeing Gerry on the Mike Douglas show, and you had a lot of jokes about. I won't even say. We can't quote Gerry's old act. We would like to. It's probably on YouTube. They've probably been scrubbed off of YouTube. It's the truth. But Gerry's always been so funny.
Hi. So first off, thanks for all coming. It's I love this movie, so it's great that you guys are all here. I have a question for Steve. So throughout your career doing movies like like this one and Despicable Me and like The Big Short and all this like wide range of movies, what is it like to prepare for each role, and like how do you take each movie with like their drastic differences and sort of like do what you do on screen?
I'm a little bit shy about talking about process because it just sounds so pretentious to talk about how I prepare for a role. It's like I appreciate the question, and it's hard. I don't know. It's hard to describe. I did a film recently with a bunch of people up in Park City by the creator of Succession, and it was really fast, and it took a completely different kind of preparation than something like this. This was based on an idea of a sketch that never actually got seen at Second City when I was working there. But I'd had this character in my head for a long, long time without knowing that it was a character in my head. But it was something that I'd been considering. This thing up in Park City, it all. I mean, it's coming out in 3 weeks, and we finished it 2 weeks ago. There was like no time to even consider what we were doing, and it was just like sort of a completely immersive experience. So it's all over the map, I guess is my answer to the question. It depends on the length of time that you have to prepare, the kind of role that you are looking to prepare for. Is it something that's quite different than you are naturally, or is it kind of this was closer to who I am? And so I could kind of tap into that, the shyness, me as a younger person, I tapped into the shyness and the awkwardness and the universality of that. So I guess that's how I approach it, is just try to find parts of the character that you can identify with, at least, and just start from there.
Thank you.
I thought that was pretty pretentious what you just said right there. That was really... Now, the reason why we all had so much fun is because Steve is the nicest, funniest man ever, and it really set the tone for the entire production of how much fun we had. Okay, we'll take one more question.
Hi, my name is Pierre Patrick. I'm a talent agent here in town. I'd like you guys to take us, since we're going to see the movie, to the very first scene you shot. And so we see if we can recognize it. How was that vibe? And
Are you a talent agent or an AM DJ? I'd like to take you back to the time.
Did you think 20 years ago this was going to be such an amazing, celebrated film?
What were your expectations, Steve? You know, before we made it and after?
I had no idea. I was just happy to be invited to the party, and the fact that, and I really owe you my career, frankly, that the fact that you took a shot at this and this idea. So I was just at your service, really, in terms of what all of this could be, because I was an idiot and knew nothing. But do you remember the first scene that we shot?
No.
I think it was me waking up with an erection.
And then I remember there was another joke. Yeah, it was you peeing with an erection.
Yes.
And
Waking
like
up in the
leaning
morning.
against the wall, right?
Waking up, crossing the frame with an erection to peeing, and then crossing back, but still with an erection.
And then later you sat down to pee, and pee went straight into your face.
Right.
And that was Kat's first big movie. She got to bring her parents to. Catherine was like, this ain't Capote.
I just want to say that I think that what occurred to me that first day was how really you're so sweet-natured, just like Judd said, but everyone really was on the film, and everyone sort of rooted for everybody else, and we were all ready to laugh, and it was just a wonderful experience, it really was.
And I watched it, and maybe you could look for this when you watch it. I had to watch it the other day to work on like a new color timing and new sound. And there's a look in everyone's eyes like they so want to score. They so want to murder. Everyone has kind of like a feral look in their eyes. Look at Jane's eyes in their movie, or Rudd's eyes. They're like, everyone just wants to kill and is killing. I mean, everyone is just going at all cylinders. I'd also like to point out that in the audience is the great Leslie Mann.
Yes!
Leslie, where are you? Nikki, the drunk driver, who's had to hear you guys yell French toast at her for her entire life. And French toast wasn't even, I think she just said French toast, and then in looping later, the sound was bad. We were just like, put a little stank on it. And she just went, French toast, and then suddenly it became a thing. And Leslie also was responsible for vomiting in Steve's face. That was her pitch. She felt it was very important to vomit in his face. So I think before we move on, I also wanted to tell you that I have been asked by the museum to create a comedy exhibition. So we can have more comedy in the museum. So it's not going to be there for a couple of years, but we're going to do a big comedy exhibit. And hopefully you guys can come check that out. And we're going to watch the movie now. I think we're going to take one picture of the group before we stop to watch the movie. Thank you guys very much for coming out. We really appreciate it. Leslie, you want to come down and join the group for a picture if you want?